evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. So, all of you, this is Shwetha Maheshwari. I'm also the author of the books She Met Life and Life at the Rate Crossroads. With that, I welcome you all here on e-Bookery show, which is presented by Brain City. Brain City is actually an education platform, which is also sponsoring with them e-Bookery show, and here we present views every Saturday. So, before starting, I have come up with something today. Do you all know the journey of evolution, all of you? I'll
Yes.
tell you my story, the kind of dream I had a few days back. A few days back, I had a dream that I became a Neanderthal. You know what is Neanderthal? They're a kind of species, they're a kind of human species that lived around 40,000 years ago. In my dreams, I saw that I converted my body structure, got converted into a kind of body structure which is similar as that of a monkey. And then I noticed a kind of species around me which is similar to me, what I am present, but different from what I am in my dreams. So I asked, who are you? We are Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens? What are Homo sapiens? We are a kind of species, we're a kind of human species which is more smarter, clever, and intelligent than you all. And you must know that if you want to survive further, you have to join our tribe. The words scared me because that species is talking something about my extinction. So in order to protect my species from extinction, I joined. And from there on, I put myself on a journey of evolution, a journey which is more inclined towards dominance, hatred, envy. I also found that in my journey, I started dividing the whole earth into continents, countries, tribes, communities, further into classes, races, religions. Then I further found that in my dreams, we don't only forget about our divine knowledge, our divine intelligence, our true potential, but we also lost the wisdom, the intelligence, the smartness that Homo sapiens that day was talking about. My dream didn't end here. It also started harming our mother nature, bringing tsunami, global warming. You know what? After that, COVID-19. Then suddenly someone woke me up and just came out of my dreams. Mommy, scientists have invented the vaccination and we can live our dreams once again. We can move out. Oh, yes, that's a good news. And I think I will be now free of my these scary dreams. Yes, mother, but now I want you to enroll me into that artificial intelligence course. Artificial intelligence course? Why you want to go for such courses when you know you have enough divine intelligence, you have enough powers, you have enough potential to rock the world? But mommy, you should know, artificial intelligence is the future, and if I'll not join it, I may not survive further. His words took me back to my dream. The Homo sapiens were asking Neanderthals to join them if they want to survive further. My question is, with this advancement, with this journey, with this evolution of becoming Homo sapiens towards advanced Homo sapiens, are we moving towards extinction or evolution? Because now on, we are on a journey to become tech sapiens, using coding, programming, data science, and I don't know what not. And you know why we want to become tech sapiens? Because we're seeking happiness. You think we're really happy? We are really, really happy? Just I leave you all today with these two questions. Are we moving towards evolution or extinction? And with this advancement, are we really, really happy? I appreciate that we're just a click away from each other. I'm sitting in one of the corners of the world and you are here and we are meeting. But do we want this technical click or physical touch? I appreciate that we are able to put our ideas into reality. But have we ever estimated what we have lost? That I leave you all. Two questions, ponder it, find it. And really want to call now Mr. Thomas to introduce Dr.T.V. Venkateswaran.
Thank you, Shwetha. I'm on the mobile, so I can't be on the camera, but excuse me for that. It reminds me of a book, Yuval Noah Harari's book, Homo Sapiens. It's a very powerful book. The whole thing talks about the human touch and the technology, and it's a powerful book. I would like to recommend. I recommend to you to read this book as well. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce our speakers with great amusement and admiration. Dr.T.V. Venkateswaran serves a Vigyan Prasar in the capacity of a scientist. And the scientists at Vigyan Prasar think and act scientifically. And there's a very apt topic for today. Vigyan Prasar was set up by the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. The objective of this particular branch is to serve India's science popularization program, an agenda e-Bookery shares with. Friends, help me in welcoming T.V. Venkateswaran on the e-Bookery platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Can I go on?
Yes, please, sir. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Brain City and e-Bookery. It's really a good opportunity for me to talk about one of my book with you, and particularly today. Today is the World Happiness Day. I hope our interaction today brings a certain kind of happiness to all of us and all people who have joined us. And second, today is also the death anniversary of Newton, Isaac Newton. On this day, to talk about one of the book that I wrote, I'm really happy. So let me share my screen so that I can present a small presentation through which I can take you through my lecture. As teachers, unfortunately, this is our, although we are also writers, this is our style of talking. So this is one of the book that I wrote. It came in Tamil and also in English and subsequently translated into Hindi and few other languages. In English, it's co-authored by me and Dr. Chatterjee. It's titled Revolutionary Scientist, Einstein and His Ideas. It's also, I mean, in Tamil, I'm the sole author. It started with the Tamil edition and then we collaborated and elaborated and made it into an English book. So what I plan to do is to present to you some of the interesting aspects from that book and about that person. Let me begin with a small quiz. By the way, Einstein was awarded Nobel Prize in 1921 for a discovery he made in 1905. Okay, way back in 1905. I mean, in 1905, he actually made 4 important discoveries, 4 papers, which are considered seminal. And the Nobel Committee thought that one of them is worth for a Nobel Prize and then awarded it in 1921. So the quiz is, During 1905, that is when he developed these ideas which got him Nobel Prize and world fame. What was the job description of Einstein? That's the question. Okay, 4 options. Option A, professor at Bern University. He was at Bern at that time. Scientist at a research institution. 3rd grade clerk at a intellectual property rights office. Head of a research organization. Well, quite obviously, this quiz is loaded. Anyone with a little bit of imagination would understand the odd man out or the odd person out should be the correct answer. Yes, he was a clerk at a intellectual property rights office. Einstein's life was not a rosy path. He had to take tuitions for students trying what today we might call as engineering entrance exam. Okay, which he failed. That's a different matter. But he was training student for that and then earning money. He and his young wife Meliva, whom he divorced later, but they both were in poverty. They had a very small house, 1 bedroom kind of a flat. They did not have any steady job. Both of them were trying to study science, and Meliva was wanting to pursue her PhD. They had a small baby. So it was a very trying time in 1905. And then one of his friends, through his father, arranged this job for him as a clerk in the intellectual property rights office. That's where he sat and wrote these 4 papers which brought him world fame. Even today, those 4 papers are read, commented, and cited. I mean, it's not put into dustbin, the dustbin of history, but it's a living history even today within physics. These 4 papers that he wrote. What did he do? I mean, when we talk about Einstein, we should at least understand one aspect of his science. So I would like to give a very, very popular introduction to one of his aspects. Assume that you are in a lift, okay, and the lift is going down, and suddenly assume that the cable which is holding the lift is cut. That is, the lift is falling down. Disasters always come in droves, right? So while the cable is cut, the lift is falling down. Presume that the floor of the lift is also given away. The question is, what will happen to you? Will you fall off the lift? Okay, that's a question that came in Einstein's mind while he was sitting and thinking about physics one day. And then he understood a very important concept. We have weight only as long as we are in a gravitational potential. When we are free falling, that is meaning that in a gravitational potential, when we are falling down, we don't have any weight. We achieve what is called as weightlessness. So basically, if you accelerate a rocket at let's say 9.8 kilometer per second, that's the acceleration that you get from gravity. All the physical phenomena that will happen inside that rocket, which is accelerating at 9.8 kilometer per second, would be exactly similar to what is happening on the surface of Earth. That is basically acceleration and gravity are equivalent. That's what was found by Einstein in his general theory of relativity, which of course was later, not the 1905. This is a later contribution. So which essentially means, suppose if there is a rocket going at 9.8 kilometer per second and the same rocket standing on the surface of Earth, and assume that there is no window, so you don't know that whether it is moving or not moving. By performing experiments inside that rocket, you can never find out whether the rocket is stationary are moving. Balls dropped will fall on the ground, even in the accelerating rocket, and also a rocket kept on the surface of Earth, quite obviously, right? Yeah. So you won't find any physical difference. This is called principle of equivalence, which is one of the important discovery of Einstein, very radical discovery of Einstein, revolutionary discovery of Einstein. This also kind of connected one of the big question which was there in Newtonian physics, where F equal to ma, we all would have studied in our school, where there is a mass of u, which depends on the acceleration and force. So somewhere the mass is defined. In the same way, for example, in the gravity, there is the equation F equal to G into m1 m by 2 r square, right? So whether this mass which is got by gravity and mass by acceleration, whether they are same. So Einstein actually proved that they are same, equivalent. That's what his equivalence principle clearly tells. From that, he developed what is called as general theory of relativity. So what does it tell us? You want to reduce weight? Actually, you can become weightless. You don't have to go through any diet regimes or strenuous exercise. Just jump out of a tall building. While you are falling, you will be weightless. Of course, after you reach the ground, you will also be lifeless. That's a different matter. Einstein was also a rebel. Many creators are also rebel. Einstein fit to that, if you want to call it a stereotype. He was non-conforming. He had a great distaste for dogma. In fact, why was he in Bern? He was a German. Why was he in Bern in Switzerland in 1905? Because he refused to be part of the German army during the First World War. He said that he abhors war. He said that war is against humanity. So he said that I cannot be part of a war effort, and that's why he ran out of Germany and came to Switzerland. And in Switzerland, he was citizenshipless. Of course, he got citizenship much later. For quite some time, Germany did not permit him to come back. It's only later that he was permitted to come back and work in Germany. His citizenship was restored in Germany much later, which again he had to leave when Nazis came to power in Germany. Even as a child, he in school he was not agreeing to mindless discipline which was imposed in schools in those days in Germany, particularly where people were expecting him to do rote learning. He wanted to understand. If he cannot understand, he said that that's not learning at all. Okay, so basically he had a tiff with the schoolmasters, and they made him get out of the class, and he was also called as lazy dog, right? He was also a non-conformist in many other ways. In 1927, he associated himself with an international organization called Congress Against Colonial Oppression and Imperialism. In fact, Jawaharlal Nehru was also part of this. This was way before India got its independence, 1927. So delegates from various countries came to Brussels, where the first Congress was held. Einstein agreed to be the honorary chairman. This is after his Nobel Prize, please remember. So he was willing to lend his credibility to the war against imperialism, war for independence in many colonial countries, including India. So in the Congress, he said that though through your Congress, the efforts of the oppressed to win independence will take a tangible form. He continuously associated himself with the Anti-Imperialist League, one organization that came out of this Congress. After he moved to America, because he had to leave Germany when the Nazis came to power, because he was a Jew, there were a lot of problems for him created by the Nazis. So he had to leave Germany and come and live in the US. So in US too, he was against the racism. I'm sure many of you will know that many parts of the US, the blacks did not even have voting rights until the civil rights movement in 1960. Imagine in India, everyone got voting rights when India became independent, but US had to wait for many decades before citizens of colors were given citizenship, voting rights in US, many states of US. So there was a huge anti-race movement that was happening in US while Einstein stayed there. I mean, he joined Princeton University. He took part in anti-race movement. He became the leadership of some of these movements. For example, with the poet Paul Robinson, they established an organization called American Crusade to End Lynching. Blacks were lynched in 1948. Okay, around the time India got independence. Okay, so that was a scenario in US where we celebrate it as a citadel of democracy. So Einstein was not agreeing to this discrimination against blacks. For example, he says that there is, however, a somber point in the social outlook of Americans. Their sense of equality and human dignity is mainly limited to men of white skins. Very hard-hitting statement that he made. He was constantly against war. He wanted to establish a world government. He said that different countries having different governments will only exhibit strife. A world government is the solution. Quite obviously, the FBI thought that Einstein was a communist spy. His wife, his second wife, when they were in Berlin, of course, had links with the German Communist Party during the Nazi period. When they came to US, the FBI started spying them. Okay, I mean, right now most of those papers have been declassified. Close to 1,100-page reports on Einstein's activities are catalogued by FBI. That's what we know. And this, of course, caused him the Manhattan Project, which is one of the most prestigious physics project of during the Second World War, when the Americans developed the atomic bombs in what is called as Manhattan Project. The FBI recommended that Einstein cannot be associated with this project because of his political views. Okay, and Einstein, many of us would be surprised, wrote while he was in US many articles arguing that socialism is the future. Okay, and he believed that a world government with the socialist ideas are essential. So in his article in 1949, he says that the economic anarchy of capitalist society as exists today is, in my opinion, the real source of evil. That's the statement that he made. And then further in the same article, he says that I'm convinced there is only one way to eliminate these grave evils, namely through the establishment of socialist economy, accompanied by a educational system, which is, I think, a very important point. Constantly, Einstein talked about education being provided to all, and education being a leviathan, educational system which would be oriented towards social goal. This is the other side of Einstein that many of us may not know. There is a very interesting aspect in his life during his Swiss years, which was kind of his formative years when he wrote those famous 4 papers in 1905, where perhaps most of his political and philosophical views also got shaped. It's interesting to note that this particular cafe in Bern, in Zurich, okay, called Cafe Odeon, is a place where Adler, a socialist, a physicist, a politician who lived in Zurich during that time, Einstein, Joyce, and Lenin and Trotsky used to visit this cafe. There used to be something called as Cafe Odeon Club, where various thinkers used to meet and discuss their ideas. We don't have records of those discussions, but we know that it happened because many of them are reminiscent there in their notebooks. If you look at the outlook of Einstein, one of his story from his childhood, which I have also described in this book, tells us how his outlook had emerged due to a chance understanding of this Pythagoras theorem. I'm sure all of you who are watching this program knows this Pythagoras theorem that a square plus b square equal to c square for a right angle triangle. We all know about it. What happened in Einstein's family is that some of his family members were devout Jews, but some of his relatives thought that Christianity is a real religion and converted to Christianity. Perhaps basically also because of certain political issues against Jews that was brewing in Germany and surrounding areas around that time. Maybe it's because of that. We don't know. But anyhow, they converted to Christianity and then started arguing that Christianity is the true religion. Of course, the parents of Einstein were more secular. I mean, they were permitting, they were Jews, but certainly not Orthodox or tilting towards Christianity. They permitted Einstein and his sister to interact with people irrespective of their religion. These both groups, the hardcore Jews and also the recent convert to Christianity, would argue that their religion is the correct truth. Einstein suddenly thought, look at this Pythagoras theorem, a square plus b square equal to c square. It's true. It's true not only because you are Christian or European. It's true not only because you are human. Imagine that there is a planet far away from Earth where there is, let's say, intelligent being who can understand mathematics. They would also have an equivalent to this Pythagoras theorem, a square equal to b square equal to c square. For in a Euclidean space, a right angle triangle, this is the necessity. This is truth beyond religion and all. So Einstein says that this childhood experience made him realize that truth lies beyond the claims of the religious preachers, and then he had a lifelong quest to find out this reality and truth, and his journey into science is motivated by this particular incident. Einstein's sister notes in her biography that this particular incident and says that how it influenced Einstein quite long. Yeah. So this is kind of a quick introduction to the book that I had. Perhaps I should stop here. I perhaps took more than the time allocated to me. Perhaps I suppose maybe we can have discussion questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr.T.V. Venkateswaran, for this beautiful journey of Albert Einstein. Yeah, I didn't know many things about what you have told us today, like about his he being a peace activist, his socialist, and his political ideas. Because we only know him as a scientist and must be thinking a person who is having just that means influenced more towards science and theories, mathematics. I was of that kind, and this is something surprising, means something amazing for me to know about him. I will definitely go ahead with the book. It's good to know many things about him. So here I'll
Maybe
ask many of you those.
I'll just add a point. I mean, well, because you have given me a cue in a sense. While the India's freedom movement was taking place, I mean, there was a student of Einstein called Adhikari. So he was a student working under Einstein for his PhD. So he called him and said that your PhD can wait, but your country's freedom cannot. So you go back and fight in the freedom struggle. And he sent him back to India. And he participated in India's freedom struggle. And he was arrested and jailed by British.
Beautiful. This is something, other side of Einstein.
Yeah.
So if any one of you have any questions here regarding or something, if you want to speak about or something you really want to share here, please go ahead.
Actually, it is really excellent review by Einstein, review about Einstein. Lot of things we came to know, and especially this is the first time when we came to know about these Einsteins and our Freedom India movement and all these things. So I would like to appreciate the author. He is really doing excellent job in propagating the science. But only one thing I asked this one question in Tamil also, when he did the same book review, the same thing I want to ask him now, just for the humor side of Einstein. Is it really true about that driver and Einstein, the comedy incident?
Yeah, okay. Maybe I should quickly recall that anecdote, because if people who are listening is not aware, then they should be knowing. Apparently, after Einstein got his Nobel Prize, he suddenly became world famous. In fact, he became suddenly world famous. The Europe and US, the newspaper carried frontline coverage about Einstein, and he became immediately a celebrity. So he was invited to many universities in Europe to give lectures. That's a kind of honor that scientists look like. If I am invited by a university to give a lecture, then I consider it a great honor. So he was given that kind of invitation. So apparently, in those days there were no air travel so much possible. So they were taking automobile to go from one university to another. One driver was driving, and quite obviously, the driver was listening to Einstein's talk. And after about sixth talk, the driver was driving him to the seventh university to give the seventh talk. So the driver turned back and said that, "What is this? I don't understand that why people are so appreciating you. I can give this talk." And Einstein, in one place, says that we should have a childlike character, curiosity, and not have ego. So perhaps maybe that's what spurred him. The anecdote says that he then told the driver that, let's do one thing. Let's change the place. You come back and put my coat and sit backside, and I'll go and drive the car. And nobody knows me in that university. They have not seen me. So they will think that you are Einstein and you give the talk. Let's see what happens. So they reach the seventh university. So the vice chancellor is waiting to open the door. He opens the door, and who steps outside? It's the driver. But of course, the vice chancellor thinks that it's Einstein. The crowd thinks that it is Einstein. The hall is jam-packed. The driver gives this lecture that what Einstein used to give. But a story should have some twist, right? Otherwise, it cannot be a story. So the twist happens. One fellow stands up from the crowd and asks one question. And suddenly the driver is put in a spot. So driver scratches his head and says that, "Oh, this is a very, very simple question. You don't need Einstein to answer this question. Look at the back. That is my driver. The driver will answer." So, of course, we don't know that whether this incident is real or not, but it's been recounted by hundreds of people who write Einstein's biography. But one thing that stands out in this anecdote is that the science is understandable by everyone. Whether you are a car driver or whether you are a poor Jew who had to survive by giving tuitions, you can understand science if you put it. It's not something like a supernatural power that comes to you, but it's a human attitude. It's a human skill. It's a human endowment that one can cultivate. That's perhaps, in my opinion, what one can understand from this anecdote. Of course, it's also very hilarious.
Of course, it's a hilarious one, and I too means this is also I'm listening for the very first time. It's beautiful to listen about this. Anyone else who wants any question or something? If you want to share, someone please. Yes. Please go ahead, Sandeep. Yes.
Thank you so much for that talk. It was really entertaining and a lot of aspects that we didn't know about. I have a question which is actually scientific, and it's not every day that one gets an audience with a person of your eminence. I did not quite understand the aspect about the rocket moving up against the force of gravity at equal to gravity, and still all activity following the force of gravity. Shouldn't it be cancelled out?
Yeah. Okay. So what I will do is that I'll share that particular screen and then answer you, so that maybe, maybe perhaps I was also going a bit faster because I was having this 20 minutes deadline in my mind. So let me show you this. Yeah. Okay. So suppose if suppose if the rocket is going up in this direction in acceleration, and if you have a ball and then if you leave the ball will drop to the ground. Okay. You just leave the ball. It's not like you are throwing the ball. You just leave the ball. Okay. You leave it out of your hand. According to Newton's first law, the ball will not move. It will stay in the same place. But because the rocket is going up, the rocket's floor will come and touch the ball. So to you, it will appear as if the ball is moving down, because you don't know whether the rocket is moving or not, because you are not observing the outside. It's a rocket with no windows. Okay. Similarly, if you are in a windowless room on the surface of Earth, if you leave the ball will drop onto the ground, which we all know. Okay, right? Not just ball, anything that you hold and then you just leave it, it will fall to the ground, right? So you will see that phenomena is exactly same. The path taken will be exactly same. So when I say the rocket is moving at 9.8 kilometer per second, I'm talking about 9.8 kilometer per second in the space, not from the surface of Earth, but in deep space. Let's say beyond moon or things like that, right? Okay, so it doesn't get cancelled. Yeah, so it doesn't get cancelled. So that is why, for example, when a rocket is moving at 9.8 kilometer per second, let's say you leave the ball will fall down. You have a clock, you measure the time taken for it to fall down. It will follow exactly the Newton's laws. Okay, something that we read in our high school physics, Newton's 3 laws, UT, etc., right? So it will follow the exact same laws. In the same way, if the rocket is stationary on the surface of Earth, you again clock the ball falling, which leaving your hand. It will follow the same, the time, the path, everything will be exactly same. That's essentially the principle of equivalence. This comes from this point that when you are when you are free falling in a gravity, okay, when you are free falling in a gravity, you don't have weight. Okay, you become weightless. You can imagine it like that. Suppose you are standing on a weighing machine, okay, on the ground. You will be exerting a weight on the weighing machine. That's how the weighing machine shows your weight. Suppose if you are falling down and then the weighing machine is under your feet, your weighing machine will also fall at the same rate like you. I'm sure we all remember that Galileo's experiment from Leaning Tower of Pisa, right? Two objects of one heavy, one light. If you drop at same time, they will touch the ground at the same time, meaning that both of them will travel at the same speed, right? Simultaneously, right? So the weighing machine and you will be traveling at the same time. So you will appear to be standing on the weighing machine, but you won't be actually putting weight on the weighing machine. So the weighing machine will show 0. Okay, so this is a phenomena that will occur when there is a free fall. This is precisely the reason why in the spaceship you find the astronauts floating. Okay, we think that there is no gravity. It's not true. There is gravity, and they are falling in the gravity. They are doing a free fall in the gravity. Okay, so that's why astronauts are actually floating in the. It's imagine like a lift without the cable. Okay, falling down. For a person from outside, both the lift and the person will be falling at the same time. So it will appear to you as if the person is floating inside the lift. So you are looking at a person floating inside a spacecraft who are actually falling free fall. But whereas the Earth is curved, so they are not actually falling on the Earth. So they are just going around. That's it.
No, so that exactly. I'm glad you mentioned that, because it was begging the question about why their food and other apparatus goes into some different orbits. It should just stay in front of them, right?
Okay, I mean in the spacecraft you are saying, inside the spacecraft, why things are moving? Huh?
Why do they move
things are
relative
moving,
to each other?
Right? Okay, suppose if I have a tube where let's say I have water. I mean, actually we drink water by keeping it in a like a toothpaste tube, and then I press it so that the water comes out. So when I press it, I have given a impulse to the water. So the water will be constantly moving, right? Because I have given it a push. It's like you are kicking a football, so the football will keep on moving. You know, you are given an impulse to the objects in the space. That's why it keeps on moving.
Okay.
And that is also one of the biggest risk inside human space capsules. You know, these small particles can go and stick in different places. It can create havoc. I mean, electrical short circuits, these are all major challenges inside the space capsule.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr.T.V.Venkateswaran. So with that, I would like to again call Mr. Thomas so as to welcome Sandeep Nath for our second book review.
Thank you, Shwetha. Being an aircraft engineering professional myself, this topic is a very dear to me, rocket science. But what you just heard is not just rocket science, much more than that. Equality, human dignity, socialist economy, a lot of things Vivis are spoken to us. Great talk, great book. And on a lighter note, 99% of humanity works on the principle of rocket science. That's what it says. It does not mean we always aim for the skies. It means that we don't start work unless our tail is on fire. And this is how it is. Now, coming back to the second speaker of the day, Sandeep Nath, a good friend of mine, an author, international speaker, a renewal coach, uh, energy coach, consultant on empowering for leadership, and solar energy expert, alternative energy expert, advisor in alternative energy programs. Welcome to e-Bookery platform, Sandeep ji.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anil. It is an absolute pleasure listening to Shwetha as she began with the dream of hers, and especially because she was talking about evolution, and I'm going to be talking about renewal, which is about the evolution of human consciousness. And coincidentally, parts of this book also draw reference from Yuval Harari and some of the data that he's brought about in his second book, Homo Deus, which you will, of course, get to read as you read Renewal. Because we were talking about how human consciousness has changed over the 100,000 years that we have been as a species on this planet. And Renewal is an exploration into how it is now time to renew that consciousness, and how it is each one of us, our individual roles that we play in doing that. It's not something that's happening through any external forces as happens inside rockets, but it is internal forces within us. So if my screen is large enough, you'd be able to read the line that says that the renewal of the planet is a mere 30 habits away, and those 30 habits are what are outlined in this book. Now, I have 20 minutes, Anil?
Yes, yes, you have 20 minutes.
Fantastic. So I'll just break this up into three parts. And in the first part, I'd like to talk to you all about the backstory of the book. In the second part, I'd like to talk a little about the content so that you are primed up for what to expect. And then, if you like, and if there is enough time, I'll just do a little bit of reading so that you get an insider view into what to expect. I don't have any slides. I will just bore you with my face. So the backstory is thus. It was about 15 years ago that I was running a consulting company in a city called Hyderabad in India. And I had all the credentials to, be an entrepreneur. And so that's where I was. And I was doing what people with my kind of credentials would do, running businesses, doing well, blah, blah, blah. But that was around the time when I started getting disturbed by what my clients were doing. Now, I was consulting on internal and external culture building and communications for clients like Genpact, which is a large business process outsourcing company. And we had these kids, just about 20 years of age, who were working there overnight, against the biorhythm in the hundreds of thousands. We're not talking about a few numbers, huge numbers across the cyber city. And their main purpose in life seemed to be to solve somebody's credit card issue or somebody's insurance problem or something like that in the United States. And to my mind, those were problems that ought not to have arisen in the first place. And to just think that all that person, that sheer talent of the youth is being used for is something clerical. In fact, clerical is a glorified word. It is robotic, zombie-ic. It didn't cut ice with me. And I thought that there is something wrong in our sense of purpose and our consciousness as we are going about Gen Y and then Gen Z, which became the next 10 years. During those 10 years, I started exploring with people who probably had answers to purpose and consciousness. And those were the Vedic gurus around South India. I was very fortunate to learn from many of the best of them. And by 2010, I had come to a point where I handed my company over to the other directors and headed off to study from Tibetan lamas in the monasteries of Sikkim in the Himalayas about our energy, what constitutes us, what makes us tick. And why that's so important is because it is these aspects of purpose, consciousness, and energy that have been driving me for the last 15 years. And subsequently, of course, I found purpose in empowering women in villages, taking solar energy there, setting up microgrids, creating micro entrepreneurs, which I did for several years. And at the same time, working with personal energy, where I owe a lot to Mr. Einstein, because he's the first person who actually scientifically documented that energy is matter, matter is energy. And so it's not so woo-woo to be playing with the atoms in the space between us. And that's what we do as we connect with universal energy and use that for health, happiness, and harmony within us. So what I do now, of course, is a lot of workshops, speaking, and consulting on how to harness your personal energy for peak performance productivity. And I do that around the world for the last 4 years. That's what I've been doing online as well as traveling. But it was when I was traveling, I was in Mexico last 2019 in November, when, November is the national novel writing month, NaMoWriMo, it's called. And people start writing, and it's a collective movement. So I was just happened to be part of a group that was part of this NaMoWriMo. And I thought, this is a good thing to do. Let me start on the book. And that is how Renewal was born. Now, like I said, it was 15 years that I had been thinking about how human consciousness can change if small things that we do on a day-to-day basis can change. And I had no idea what those small things were. Of course, there would be things that would become habits, but I didn't even know how habits would be formed, how it's easy to change habits. Is it easy to form new habits or replace habits? And everybody has a theory about everything. But what was interesting is that when I sat down to write, and I wasted about 20 days of November just twiddling my thumbs, around the 20th of November is when I started. I started on a clean slate, and characters, contexts, events, and places, and people, of course, emerged every day in my life. It was about 2-3 days of writing when a certain Guru Pranachandra emerged into my consciousness. And this Guru Pranachandra is a sort of energy form who is the Sutradhar, the storyteller, in fact, the speaker of the whole process of renewal. And the entire book was channeled through me by this energy form who identified himself as Guru Pranachandra. And I would take no credit, as I write in the first line of the preamble, I am the scribe, I am not the author. This book is written by Guru Pranachandra. I wrote it, finished it off by the end of December. And in the first week of January is when I started editing it for, I was myself learning concepts that had been scribed there. And by February, when I was past the first round of editing, this coronavirus thing started becoming a talk of the world. And by March is when I was back in India. And by mid-March, when the lockdown came about, I found that a lot of the habits that I had jotted 3 months ago were getting mandatory in society in that period. For example, telecommuting to work. for example, schooling online, homeschooling, mindfulness of wearing masks, sanitizing, washing hands, stuff that continues all through for the last 12 months and will probably continue the next 12. And so it was in April that I decided enough of this editing and all that. Let me talk to somebody who would help me get this book out. And I was fortunate to get in touch with a publishing house called Notion Press, based in Chennai, India, who offered to put this out as early as June. And so June is when this book was actually available across all leading portals, not just Amazon, in print and e-form. And I received some phenomenal reviews for it. It was a dream. The book has been on its own journey, but I got in touch with somebody who I've been wanting to get a forward from. And this gentleman is the founder of YMAA, which is an energy school based in Boston. He's of Chinese origin. His name is Dr. Yang Jingming. And I have learned Qigong energy work from him. He went through the book and offered to write the foreword, which he did in the last quarter of last year. And I'm happy to share with you, friends, that by next month, we would have the second edition out with all the reviews in it and this foreword where this line comes from. The world is a mere 30 habits away from renewal. So what are these habits? What is the content of this book about? This is the book. And it is, this graphic itself has a lot of thought going into it. It's about the on-off button at one end. It is the Egyptian hieroglyphic symbol of life. And it is about the renewal of nature, of our connectedness with nature, our oneness with how we were originally designed to be. What has served us for 100,000 years, which we have suddenly lost in the last 100 to 200 years, and more so with the advancement of technology, and something again Shwetha has to think about very serendipitously, because this book talks about that. And I will just not get into the reading, but just to give you the context, the back page is the human race conclusively set for self-annihilation? As futurists prophesize, are we only decades away from extinguishing the planet? Or are we capable of changing this trajectory because of what you start on today? Renewal is about how each one of us can A, renew ourselves at a mind, body, spirit level. B, renew our society and our environment. And C, renew the systems we operate with. As of 2020, renewal is critical because it is our laxity that has led to the current state of rising personal illness, mindless lifestyles, social degeneration, environmental degradation, and overall moral decay. Written to serve as a practical guide for everyone's day-to-day karma, renewal is set in the lives of a modern-day family. It is strung together by the charismatic Guru Pranachandra, whose discourse drives home the vital message that the world is a mere 30 habits away from renewal. Adopters of these habits will be the future renewalists, who could well outnumber the vegans, Buddhists, technologists, and Catholics in times to come. And it is these renewalists who hold the key to save the world from annihilation. Friends, thanks to the e-Bookery show and this club, I'm happy to have a group of 17 renewalists around me today. What is renewalism? Renewalism is a movement that I have started, and with the second edition we'll give a bigger push to adopt certain habits that make us self-renewed, which is the renewal at a mind, body, spirit level. They are stuff that COVID has pushed us towards. We are already guided in that direction, because we are now seeing the effects of being, like I said, more mindful, for example. Now, it's not just mindfulness about a mask and washing hands. It's mindfulness also about what we consume, how much we consume, how much of electricity we use up, how much of water we use up, what are the consequences of those actions at a personal level. In fact, when it comes to electricity and water, we would be actually talking about the systemic renewal, the man-made systems by which, a country like the United States uses up 5 times per capita what a country like India does. And India, in turn, uses up 5 times per capita what a country like Bangladesh does. So what's the difference? Why is there such a big gap? Are human needs changing? No. It is the human wants. It is aspects of making ourselves more and more comfortable and cushy at the cost of the planet, which calls for a different kind of thinking within ourselves. So the first thing to focus on is self-renewal on our own thinking. And how does that come about? And how important is a daily routine? So the first 10 habits of self-renewal are about getting that routine in place from the time we wake up, energizing ourselves internally, to the time we go to sleep, by sleeping with the kind of thoughts and mindsets that help us have a good night, which is a great recharge. So it relies on a lot of ancient Oriental wisdom, which I have distilled through the last 15 years, and explains how the yin energy, for example, is so critical in the sleep cycle. And a lot of that now, because instrumentation is just developing in the scientific world, is corroborated by science, because now they understand the REM cycles and the deep sleep cycles, and how 6 to 8 hours of sleep is critical. But we've always known that for 5,000 years. So science, I often say, is limited by what it can measure, but experience is unlimited. So habits are things that you cultivate within and experience the result of, and then stay with them. You just naturally adopt them because they serve you right. And if they don't serve you right, maybe there's a little tweak in the habit that you are forming. And that's why it's a book that could go back for reference again and again, or it could be something that would lend itself to forming renewalism clubs, to forming book clubs like this, which discuss renewalism habits, so that, something like Alcoholics Anonymous, when somebody is missing the point somewhere, they just get back on the rails for the benefit of the entire ecosystem. The second part of the renewalism habits, the next 10, are of the ecosystem, symbiotic renewal. Symbiotic renewal is about our relationships with each other. How do we relate with the elder generation? How do we relate with kids? Now, again, the pandemic changed a lot of the ways that we do that. In fact, I ran the Renewalism show sometime in June during the month of launch last year, and it's available on YouTube. Just type Renewalism and it will be taken to the playlist. But at the end of the playlist, I have one video which I made without a guest, which is on an evaluation of how many habits have been forced into, which we could have designed ourselves for. And it was 21. 21 of the 30 habits we have been forced into, and that's why we are grappling with them. Like, for instance, we've been forced into being with our kids. Now, you could have designed being with your kids and design activities that make family relationships so much stronger and lesser dependent on electronic gadgets. But now that kids are around, now that parents are around, now that the concept of care is around, personal care, human to human, parents to kids, that's symbiotic aspect coming into play. So, and the third set of 10 habits is on systemic renewal, which are the systems like telecommuting, like homeschooling, like online education, like we talked about water and electricity and other such. Why I bring out these things is because we have now been nudged in that direction. And it is up to us to sustain habits which actually do serve us, which actually bring down the pollution that we create, for example. And like we saw in the last year when the cars were off the roads, how they result in blue skies and the birds coming back and the dolphins coming back in the waters and all of that. So personally, as a scribe, an author, I was delighted with the changes that were being triggered in human consciousness by the pandemic. And I was very hopeful that a lot of this would continue as renewalism starts getting adopted. It did not happen in the last year. It would probably start in this year. As we know from Einstein and Gandhi and Mandela and a lot of the stalwarts who have created revolutions, movements take time, but they're always revolutionary. And I am hopeful that renewalism would be one of them. So I do have a few minutes to go, but I'd like to take a consensus here. If you would like me to do a little reading from the book, or you would like to engage in questions, you could unmute and whatever you prefer.
A reading from the book.
All right. Thank you. I will read to you the talk. When I timed it last, it was 7 minutes. So do we have 7 minutes?
We can have 3 minutes of reading and 3 minutes of question and answers.
Perfect. So the talk is the crux of this book. And this is the talk that Guru Pranachandra delivers to that family that we just talked about. You know, it's a modern day family. The book is set in their lives. It's set with that context because it becomes relatable to the characters who live their lives like you and I do. And as Guru Pranachandra speaks, and after this talk, he is spelling out those habits, people are able to relate, people in the audience, people in the family, and there is a parallel fiction track which allows people to pull back from their experiences of the past and make it kind of a mix of fiction and non-fiction. So the Guru is seated with a group of about 100 people, and he starts. With a nod and no pleasantries, Guru Pranachandra began. Once upon a time, Ram and Shyam got into an argument. Orchestrating his loud and robust voice perfectly with his animated fingers and arms, the Guru established at the outset that this was going to be a lot more dramatic than a bedtime story. Ram asked, if there is life at the end of that tunnel, then why has no one ever come in from there to tell us about it? Ram was sure that there was nothing but darkness and oblivion out there, and that attempting to push through that tunnel would be like inviting death. Well, I don't know, said Shyam, but yes, we will meet Mother out there, and she will take care of us. Pranachandra continued, pausing between characters, changing his tone from a cynical one for Ram to a pacifying one for Shyam. And Ram replied, Mother? Do you really believe in Mother? That's laughable. If Mother exists, then where is she now? She's all around us, Shyam said. We are surrounded by her. We are of her. It is in her that we live. Without her, this world would not and could not exist. Well, said Ram, I've never seen her, so it's only logical that she doesn't exist. And Shyam replied, sometimes, when you're in silence and you focus and you listen intently enough, you can perceive her presence and you can hear her loving voice calling from above. With that brief prelude, the Guru had ensured that he had his audience captivated. Now was the time to begin with the subject formally. Ladies and gentlemen, as you might have guessed, this was a conversation between twins inside their mother's womb. The strange thing is, our life outside the womb is governed quite similarly by our consciousness. Consciousness is something that we all have and live because of and respond to every second of every minute of every day. But the funny thing is, nobody knows what it is, where it is, or how to do anything about it. I also don't know. I can only sense it. I feel it in an awareness of my connection with everything and everybody, animate or inanimate. If I can respond to that awareness, then I am conscious. If I cannot, then I'm unconscious. It is so simple. If one of you throws a toffee at me and it does not come into my conscious awareness, I will get hit. If it does, I might duck as a reflex action. If I get hit and even then it does not come into my conscious awareness, I might not respond because I'm unaware that I've been hit. This happens to us at a physical level quite often. Mosquitoes or other insects bite us and we seldom take notice of them. We make no conscious response, right? Taken to an extreme, in the thick of war, soldiers sometimes receive bullets and they continue to fight while blood falls out of their bodies. And finally, they fall too without conscious awareness. Stretching himself to full height as he sat with his legs crossed and hands tightly placed over his knees, the Guru donned an expression of seriousness. At a mental level, this happens to many more of us. Those who go to offices. On a typical day, we get up in the morning, get ready to do some things mechanically, get into the car and go. We do things through the day that we don't know why we're doing, we don't know what the pressure about doing them is, and we don't know what the ultimate purpose is, to what end. We simply go back and forth, and then we return home and maybe do some things around the house, maybe spend time with the family or watch TV, and then we go to sleep and repeat the cycle. This is the life of a zombie, Guru Pranachandra stated matter-of-factly. He was ensuring with his words and actions, raising his hands often to stress important points, that no nonsense was to be expected that evening. Switching to a compassionate, educative tone, he continued, the life of consciousness is one where you would get up in the morning and connect with yourself inside of yourself. See how you're feeling. Every part of you is feeling. That is what you are. These parts were born with you, they will die with you. Why do you take them for granted? Why does everything in the outside world seem important while everything in the inside world seems inconsequential? Why do we lose our conscious connection with our entire inside world until we have to be carried away in an ambulance? Why does a near-death experience often trigger a new outlook on life? Why don't we generate a conscious renewal for our own life even while we live it? Why not? So there are call-out boxes like this one, which are spread all over the book every 3-4 pages to capture an important statement. Like the last one was in this call-out box. Randomly, there's another one here. The self-talk we indulge in can either propel us to achieve what we want or equally easily detract us from getting there. Or randomly again, unless you can use where you stand as a hard ground to jump from, you will never be able to leap anywhere. And stuff like that. Renewal. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Sandeep Nath, for this beautiful review and this beautiful book, Renewal, which is actually inspiring us, encouraging us, like, yes, renew yourself. It may be through mind, body, and spirit, through societies or through system. And yes, I really understand this. COVID has given us, in fact, I should say the time is not that good, but still it has given us a chance to renew ourselves. And yes, I did a lot. What about others? If anyone has any question or something like that, move ahead. What about you, Mr. Thomas?
Yeah, amazing book. Another amazing book from Sandeep Ji. We get into conversation very on and off. And I know it's a very powerful talks always. You can renew, you can bring that powerful thoughts always into your life. And I want to hear it from a few other people. Maybe I can bring Dr. Winston, Major Narayan, and Tahmina. You can call all of them. Dr. Winston, are you there? Please unmute yourself. Maybe I can send a prompt. Okay.
Yes,
Then,
yeah.
yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very important concept. Renewal is something that's necessary for every human being. Congratulations in your book.
Yeah. Before I go to Major Narayan, let me hear it from Gunasharan sir and Tahmina and Dr. Rajamani sir, Sunita. It's open. We have another 10 minutes to go.
Great. Okay, so I'll tell you a bit about I'll tell you both about both books. Firstly, the first book I really liked about Einstein because he was always an inspiration to many people. And if I'm not wrong, I think there was a particular story where his mother came and said to him that you're too good to be taught by that particular teacher or that school. And so I will teach you. So at that particular school, there was the management or somebody. I'm not sure how true this story is, but I enjoy reading stories, so this is why I'm saying it. His particular school management or school teacher said that he is very weak and he needs to be working very hard. He's not supposed to be in the school. He's supposed to be in a special ed school. And his mother came back to him and said, you know what? I'm going to teach you and let the world see what kind of a genius you are. And today he's known as Einstein the genius. And that's why I really liked and I connected completely to the book of how he said, I will not ratta maar in Hindi, rote learn what you're saying. I will understand and be totally able to relate to what you're saying only if I understand. And today, unfortunately, a lot of the children in India are still learning the rote learning way, which is quite sad. But I think things are going to change with the new education system coming in, and there's going to be a good change where Indian children, Indian youth will be seeing a new, brighter perspective for India and for the world. So thank you, Dr. Venkateswaran. For the second book, Sandeep Naji, your renewalism is totally awesome because I have seen you speak from experience and you coming back from the Himalayas, we can see the Himalayas in you. So I think that's a really, really interesting part of how you said renewalism. And I can connect with you when you said that you've written your story from a plain script and how things started changing for you from that plain script. Within 3-4 days, you saw magnificent changes. And somewhere along the line, I just think that it's like the universe was talking to you.
Yeah, that's right.
And you had immense faith in what you were writing, and that guided you through the entire book. And now that you're ready for module 2, has made us really see that what happened in the first book was something which you have actually not only written, but you have practiced because you preached it.
Thank you, Sunita, and thank you for bringing out that aspect because I would like viewers to see this, the systemic habit number 3. It's explore homeschooling for a while. And Guru Pranad Chandra says, my plea to you, therefore, is to allow your kids to connect with their inner power while they still have it active, unclouded, and unobscured. And in that process, there's more. And because you might need social proof, I have shortlisted a few people who underwent homeschooling and turned out pretty good. And there's a list: Justin Bieber, Emma Watson, Charlie Chaplin, Maria Sharapova, Venus and Serena Williams, George Bernard Shaw, Agatha Christie, Charles Dickens, Alexander Graham Bell, Albert Einstein, Isaac Newton, Theodore Roosevelt, Helen Keller, Andrew Carnegie. You can research more. I too have got this from the internet. He says so.
Right. Just to show on the part of your renewalism, my husband and I believe totally on what you say, and we guided our son in the same path. So today, my son doesn't do rote learning, but he does a lot of understanding and learning. He will question you 10,000 times. Why should I do that if there's no purpose for it? So to break our heads and it's like a challenge. But today he can actually close his eyes. He'll blindfold himself, and if I give him a card to read or even a book to read or anything from this, he will read it blindfolded. And that's his third eye opened up, because even though he's still at a very young age, he's only 15 years old, He can read credit cards. He can tell you who's going to be on the phone, who's calling you, without even being there. So we have channelized his energy, and we have shown him that this is what your brain is capable of. So he's been awarded at his school. He's been, tremendously acknowledged, even though that he's a rebel of football. But he loves showing off his talent that he can learn by understanding. So thank you for your book.
Awesome.
Great. Can I call Sukanya?
Yes, actually, I joined halfway. I have been listening for about the renewalism. I totally agree with Sandeep on his viewpoint. It was really interesting. But sorry, I was not here for the complete session. But for the renewalism, the portion which I heard, it was completely, I agree to this concept. It was really interesting. Thank you.
Okay. Guna sir, anything more to add?
I think Temina wanted to say hello. Hello, Temina.
Yes, yes. Please go ahead.
Temina, would you like to share something?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
It has also happened in a way that I too have heard both these books halfway. I had to leave in between, and then I came back and joined. But I'm really the thing is that Einstein is, I suppose, he's a hero for everybody who has any knowledge of science, and I really wanted to know a lot of things, which I did. And I'm happy I learned so many different things from this lecture, which makes me want to know even more. And the other one which Sandeep sir was doing, such a, I mean, what a beautiful concept this is. If everybody could really do this, take this step and try to renew their lives, their individual persons, and think about things, what would this world be? It's true, we are not thinking. And I hope this book goes a long way and really brings people to that thought, conscious thought, that they have to make a difference by changing their habits. I wish all of you best of luck, and I wish this book would go, it would become, it would be in the hands of many people, so that we all begin to change for the better. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, Samina. Let me turn to Man of All Seasons, Medisab.
Yeah, good evening. Time is very short. I'll make it much more briefer. The first book, I was totally taken aback by the lucidity of expression. The way he was able to bring out the thoughts so very well encapsulated in the book was simply fantastic. I'm reminded of the famous quote of Albert Einstein: imagination is more important than knowledge. And you can't have the same set of problems and have the same set of solutions. And the amount of study that the author has done, the reviewer has done, himself read out the book for several times, and he's been able to give it in a way that we could understand, we could relate to each other, and he was able to give the formula so simply, very evocatively, and very simple, very lucid. Even though Albert Einstein would say, if you can't explain a concept simply in a simple language, it means that you don't know anything. So the reviewer needs to be appreciated for the way he's been able to bring it out. Renewalism, they said that nothing controls you except your thoughts, and nothing binds you except your fears, and nothing liberates you except in your self-talk. Renewalism all about self-talk and the power of dreams and the power of habits. It is said that man forms a habit and the habit starts forming the man. And he was able to weave his magic through different aspects of human behavior, psychology, and the world of dreams. And I know him, he's a member of the Professional Speakers Association of India, and no doubt he's been able to carry us through with his powerful rendition, not only of the book, but also of his thoughts. I thoroughly enjoyed both the book reviews. Thank you, and all the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Friends,
you so
before
much,
the clock strikes 8 in India, I'd just like to bring your attention to a link that I posted there. Any of you who would like to get a copy of Renewal by post, you could, of course, order it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or anywhere. But if you're okay with a EPUB, MOBI or PDF copy, then you click on that link and it's my gift to you. You will get into a WhatsApp group, which is not for interaction, but it is basically so that you can download any of these files from the group description, and you can stay with touch with me as you explore the aspects of renewal. And if you come across any bottlenecks, I'll be happy to help.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Back to you, Shwetha.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Thomas. So with that, I think we are towards the end of the session, and I thoroughly enjoyed both the books, learning something about Einstein, something different. And yes, that's something we'll take definitely towards the renewal as well. I do believe in transformation. My book also talks about transformation, and the second one as well. So yes, renewal is, change is constant. Life is in flux. So we should also keep on renewing ourselves. So with these notes, I'll end the meeting. So bye-bye, all of you. Anyone, anything else to say? Otherwise, we'll go ahead.
Thanks a lot. Thanks to all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a
you,
lot,
Sandeep
Thank you for
Dr.T.V.
joining.
Venkateswaran and Sandeep Nath for this beautiful book reviews.
Thank you.
Definitely,
Bye-bye.
I'll go with the gift as well.
Yes, I will go with the gift too.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you all and take care. Bye-bye. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank